We were able to put a lot of little Easter eggs that felt very fun.
I almost can't keep up with how many amazing little Easter eggs there are in this film.
Miles lives in an alternate universe, so there are little things that are different all the time.
You can't have a Spider-Man film without spider eggs.
As far as Easter egg spiders go, I'm quite partial to Scarlet Spider.
Ben Reilly has that sort of classic 90s look.
He has like too many triceps.
So many muscles.
Is he okay?
Ah!
I really love Web Slinger.
Bombastic Bagman.
Here's the Insomniac Spider-Man from the PlayStation game.
Another video game guy.
Are you talking to me?
It's rude to stare.
Spider-Woman Canada in the original Summit Series hockey jersey, which is a very prideful point in Canadian hockey history.
My favorite thing is getting Spider-Buggy into the film because it's so weird and doesn't make any sense.
Metro came in to do a cameo, and he gets a huge laugh.
There's nowhere to run. My bad, everybody. There was somewhere to run.
People in the visual development department and other departments got included in the signage itself.
I always ask all the artists to throw their area codes or zip codes throughout the film, so I have plenty of shout-outs to my hometown, Toronto. 416 has an area code. We have Sarah Pacelli and Brian Michael Bendis tags throughout.
The ticker tape running at the bottom of the screen there that says just in, K. Thompson drafted to the Clippers. That's Justin K. Thompson, my fellow director, who also happens to be a huge Clippers fan.
The various different teams at Sony Pictures Imageworks, they're actually named after streets in Brooklyn. So you'll see the names of the folks on the Bedford team, Bedford Avenue being a street in Brooklyn.
A lot of the filmmakers, artists, animators are modeled in the movie, and there are versions of them hidden throughout. One of the worlds we thought would be fun would be a Lego dimension. So there's this 14-year-old kid named Preston Mutonga who lives up in Toronto. We made this beautiful shot-for-shot remake of the first full Spider-Verse trailer. We asked if he wanted to animate the Lego shots that are in the movie.
Oh, no.
The shelf above Miles's desk is the little moose from The Mitchells versus the Machines. In Margot's room, you see here the Flindislifer from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Our buddies, the Daniels, made the Oscar-winning film Everything Everywhere All at Once, which features a bagel. This film, coincidentally, also features bagels. We needed a billboard, so we thought it would be a billboard for the
Tony Award-winning musical All of It, Always, All Over the Place.
In Miles's room, all the posters have slightly altered pop culture references for his dimension.
We got the Beastie Girls.
Yeah, we got Wu-Tang Clan.
In Miles's journal, Uncle Aaron's wearing a 3-Pac shirt as opposed to a 2-Pac shirt.
There's an oyster cart, real mother shuckers, and that's actually a real oyster cart. Miles's jersey is a Brooklyn Knicks God Sham God jersey. He was like a playground legend. He didn't have much of a pro career. So in Miles's world, God Sham God became a Knicks player and became one of the all-time greats up there with Jordan.
What?
Ooh, okay.
Miles.
When Rio snaps her fingers, a little Puerto Rican flag pops up.
In this Jeopardy scene, all the categories are spider-themed. Right past the flan, that is a Jell-O from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. 2 posters in Margot's bedroom here, and they're both written in binary code, and one says, anyone can wear the mask, and the other says, let's do this one last time.
When Spot goes into the Venom portal here, you'll notice the mints that he steals are at Venom Mints by Brock's Candies.
In the Momatin sequence, I stuck in my girlfriend's picture on a billboard.
Are those my Jordans?
I can't help it if we're the same size.
Ganke is playing the Insomniac Spider-Man 2 video game.
When Rio picks up Gwen's sweater, one of the patches on that says Boominati. That is Metro Boomin's label.
The automatopoeia in Pavitra's dimension are translated into Indian dialects instead of crash or bang or boom.
We actually use Thwiz as Miguel O'Hara's web instead of Thwip.
The thwang effect here is pulled from Web Slinger's comic. When Miguel refers to ASM 90, he's actually referring to Amazing Spider-Man issue 90. The pose you see is Spider-Man holding George Stacy that we saw in the comic.
Event ASM 90, a police captain close to Spider-Man dies.
This original Spider-Man 2099 comic cover, this is a recreation by Rick Leonardi himself.
I got to design a suit for Miguel O'Hara, his white second suit. Miguel's workshop had that design sitting in the background.
The back of Hobie's jacket says FNSM, as well as on his guitar pick, that stands for Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Mugshot here, taken in Camden, London, where Daniel Kaluuya, who voices Hobie, is from, and the founding location of the punk rock movement.
I don't follow orders. Leave it as he.
My name is Miles Morales. I'm Brooklyn's one and only Spider-Man. And things are going great.
There's this great thing in Spider-Man comics where Spider-Man's always dealing with whether or not he chooses to save that one person or the whole world.
Miles is figuring out what kind of spider he wants to be.
Oh yeah, you were supposed to be her. Fine.
There are certain rules of a Spider-Person's story. Miles wouldn't just roll over and accept that rule.
Miles is not just a yes spider. He's gonna save his loved ones.
I don't think destiny is a thing. I think choice is a thing.
Canon events are the connections that bind our lives together, and we could lose everything.
The multiverse has certain canon events that repeat from universe to universe for all the spider people. There's a path that they go through as they become a spider person.
We're living in a comic book world, and we have to abide by the rules of the comic book world.
The natural order of things is that they sometimes have to let somebody die who is meant to die in their universe.
If you pull the pin out of that, everything falls apart. It's not a good thing if you break the fate of the canon events.
That's the adage of Spider-Man across all the universes. With great power comes great responsibility, right? If you change anything along the way, it changes everything. But what is destined? Who's to tell you how you should choose, how you should live? You know, you really want to lead with your heart, which I think is what Miles has always done.
This canon event, which is the loss of his dad, pushes him to this place of changing his story, which is changing the canon.
The idea that there's somehow a set way that things need to be is antithetical to the way that we think. It feels intuitive that Miles would buck against that and say, wait a minute, that's not what being a hero is about. It's about trying to thread the needle. That's what heroes are supposed to do. They're not supposed to capitulate this idea of what's already happened.
A police captain close to Spider-Man dies, saving a kid from falling rubble during a battle with an arch nemesis.
Do you save your father or do you save the world? That's what's really going to define you as a spider person, not just putting on the mask.
You've got to find a way to learn to be yourself. And that translates so perfectly to what young people go through today. There's all these expectations and roles that you're supposed to fulfill in a certain way. And Across the Spider-Verse is a story about someone questioning that and pushing against it and saying, well, what if that doesn't work for me? What if there's a larger truth that I have to find for myself?
My dad is about to be captain.
Miles, being Spider-Man is a sacrifice.
It's an interesting conflict. Choose between his family or choose to save the world. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one.
It's a philosophical question, right? You have to make this decision to save all these people who you don't know and you've never met. Or the one person that you know and the idea of being without them would destroy you.
He embodies so much of what we go through in our daily lives. The fact that he's put into this crazy decision now, you instantly imbue your own psyche on that character and go like, how would I have dealt with this?
Miles is an amazing Spider-Man. It's not easy to do what he had to do.
I think that decision is one that we all face, whether or not to stay in our comfort level or go past it.
I love that they put Miles in that corner. For Peter, it's really hard to advise him not to want to save his father, but Peter also is a little bit old school and he knows how it works to be Spider-Man.
I think because of some of his past trauma, Miguel has landed on the idea of control. And the more you can control the outcome, the more that you can stabilize any anomalies, the better chance for stability there will be.
On paper, you might say, well, how could Miles be so selfish? On an emotional level, it's much easier for the audience to relate to Miles rather than the logic of Miguel O'Hara and the Spider Force.
Miguel has basically shut feeling off and saying, you know what, it doesn't matter what we feel, it doesn't matter what we want. What matters is the greater responsibility that we have.
That was a difficult decision for Miles, going against the Spider Society. They've accepted fate. It's heartbreaking.
You have a choice between saving one person and saving an entire world.
I can do both! Spider-Man, always.
Not always.
Miles believes that if he can save that one person, his father, he can save the whole world along with that. And that the two things don't have to be mutually exclusive.
He has to do what's good for everybody, but he has to save his father. You cannot leave the things dear to you behind, and that's the ultimate sacrifice, doing both.
He's saying, I'm going to do both. I believe there's a way to save everybody. The key to this story is his belief in himself, despite what everyone else is telling him.
I love you, Miles.
Miles comes from a place where he's loved and supported. That's really unusual in a superhero story. Miles is trying to defend the fact that he has an intact family and keep it that way.
For years, I've been taking care of this little boy. And what I worry about most is they won't look out for you like us.
He makes the decision that he can blaze his own path. And it has a universal ring because every one of us at some point has to make those choices.
You can't ask me not to save my father.
I'm not asking.
I don't think that anybody is destined for anything. We make tiny choices every day in our life, which leads the path. Miles, in his attempt to be loved by his parents and loved by Gwen and respected by 2099, that's what drives him. I don't think destiny plays a role.
I'm not afraid of anything. I know how strong I am now.
He finds out that he wasn't supposed to be bitten. He didn't follow the traditional path through spiderhood.
Miguel reveals that this entire conundrum was set off by Miles' very existence as Spider-Man.
You're a mistake! If you hadn't been bit, none of this would have happened!
An idea of somebody telling you don't fit in is something that we all kind of go through. The challenge is trying to find the confidence within yourself.
You don't always have to do exactly what's expected of you. You don't have to follow the canon. It's just one of the cool things about Miles, too, is that he's figuring that out, which is very relatable.
His parents have expectations of him. His friends have expectations of him. They're all trying to define that for him. He makes a very powerful choice to make his own destiny.
It's beautiful that he will fight anyone, everything, every obstacle. There's nothing that'll stop Miles from saving his family.
Who has no idea what you're doing!
Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing.
This movie ends on a cliffhanger.
I'm Spider-Man.
Who's Spider-Man?
Miles is Spider-Man, but he's also the cause of all this problem. There is a world that doesn't have a Spider-Man. It's pretty powerful because it makes the decisions suddenly seem a lot more complex.
Oh no.
He's in the wrong universe.
You have to wait till the next movie to see the solution, but it's not as simple as just let me get out of here and get home. This is a problem that I also have to solve because it's a problem of my own creation.
Uncle Aaron?
All of it is going to come together in this next movie. It's going to really culminate in Miles having to choose what kind of a superhero he wants to be.
Miles! Want to get out of here?
Animation as a medium allows us to tell stories in a much more vast way than you can in live action. We have the ability to change and control absolutely everything within the picture plane.
We did so much on that first movie that was out of the comfort zone of an animated feature film, and it became clear that people wanted more. We're opening up many more worlds.
Making each world look like it came from a different artist's hand or a different style of comic book allowed us to push different chapters of the movie in wholly different directions.
All of their inspiration is taken from comic book artists, different fine artists. We've had to create a new tool set in order to hit all of these different looks.
What's special about this movie is that we can have each universe be its own complete distinct look and cinematic language. Each world is wholly distinct and unique and really unlike anything you've seen before on film.
We go to all these really incredible, distinct worlds that all have a philosophy behind how they look, how they move, and even the technology within them.
Let's do things differently.
The look for Gwen's world comes from her comic books, and there's a lot of unusual color choices. In our world, the primary colors are yellow, red, and blue. In her world, there are cyan, orange, and violet.
Gwen's world, it's a very wet medium. It's very brushy. We have dripping paint.
It was more of a loose watercolor style, along with influences from the comic books, which had these graphic cutouts.
There's a lot of vertical brush strokes. So we took that and we actually amplified that. One of the things we really liked in her world was color doesn't always respect the boundaries of objects. A lot of times within the silhouette, the colors would blend through the objects.
I thought it would be so cool to, rather than tell people what she was thinking every second, to just have the environment change, just react to her emotions like a mood ring. And in real time, shot for shot, you can watch what she's thinking change on screen behind her. Whatever she's focused on becomes the only thing on screen, and the rest of the world falls away.
In the beginning of the movie, we have this big scene in the Guggenheim Art Museum where Gwen has to go in and take on the Vulture.
Gwen, she's from Manhattan in this universe. So we picked a recognizable landmark that was unique to her world and her experience. The Guggenheim is an iconic piece of architecture and a touchstone of New York City. This clean expression of modernist design, juxtaposing the Da Vinci-style Renaissance-era drawings of the Vulture, gave us a great opportunity to sort of do the old versus the new in one setting. It's an incredible arena to put a big battle in. We burnt part of it down, we blew part of it up, and it was something you could only do in animation.
Who's the new guy?
Mumbai is a combination of Mumbai and Manhattan. It's the home of Pavitra, Pravakar, Spider-Man India.
Dang. The challenge of creating the world of Mumbai was how do you take the busyness and the grandeur and the scale of Manhattan and interject the even bigger, grander, busierness of Mumbai and India into one setting.
We wanted to feel like it was this endless chasm of city. The first concept for it was that the Hudson had been drained and a city had been built in this giant gulch. So what we did with our camera was, rather than moving through the city horizontally, we were moving through the city vertically. And when you look down, it needed to look like it went on forever.
Woo! We started building basically New York on top of a New York on top of a New York, and a celebration of Indian culture just injected into the whole thing. And so we've got traffic in every different direction. We've got buildings on tops of buildings.
Quick tour. This is where the traffic is. This is where the traffic is. This is also where the traffic is. There's traffic here too.
I did in Mumbai, some of the art on the walls, some of the posters you see around, some paintings. I used like 4 different languages to make those art pieces so that every part of India is kind of represented, like from Tamil, Hindi, Marathi. For the world itself, we were inspired by these Indrajal comics and Amar Chitrikatha, which were these comics I grew up reading. So it was incredibly satisfying to translate that into this 3D world.
What we loved about the comics was the black of the ink didn't necessarily line up exactly where the color was. And at times it looked like where the printing process might have sort of fallen short, somebody just got in there with a paintbrush and started painting stuff.
The offset printing quality evokes a certain feeling. So we wanted that imperfection with the world.
These beautiful color palettes, the way in which they handle detail, the more brushy ink work, bringing all that into then what is the biggest, largest version of Manhattan you could ever imagine, created this wholly unique world of Mumbai.
I'm Miguel O'Hara. I'll take it from here.
The challenge of creating Miguel O'Hara's world in Nueva York was to take something that feels futuristic, and yet Miguel represents this authoritarian figure, the old guard. So now we have this challenge of it's the new, it's the future, and yet it's the old and the established. And so we rolled back the clock a little bit and looked at what were the futurists doing in the 70s and 80s.
We go into 2099, which is more architectural based, very sort of Sid Mead inspired, very clean, dry brush type painting.
We also looked at Latin American architecture
and particularly Burl Marx, who has these really cool shapes that you'll see like repeated all throughout the movie.
You can see the underdrawing in the sketch and then the loose painting and markering that they would do in those concept art things from the 70s and 80s that permeates that world. And the farther away you get from camera, the more unfinished and sketchy it is.
It's almost like the artist is drawing it under camera at times, trying to keep up with the pace of the action that's happening, but it's always kind of slipping away.
We also drew inspiration from a comic called Space 1999. You could feel the markers, you could feel the hand of the artist trying to figure out what the future was going to look like.
It had some really cool effects. What was in light would be rendered. What was in the shadows would just be flooded with a color or a light. And you'll see that in scenes like when Miles first meets Miguel. He's got kind of a solarized light on his face.
We really grabbed the artist desks of the 80s and used that as our tools to create this world of the future.
This is unbelievable.
We literally made 5 movies at once, and they all have their own extremely unique qualities, and they all take just as much effort to design as one single movie would. Patrick has done an incredible job helping me come up with a vision for those, establishing those looks, working with his team to develop these incredible styles that I'm just blown away by. It's awesome to watch him bring it to life.
I gotta get back to being a great student, so can we make this quick?
Miles, I love that he stands for family.
Gwen is facing a lot of conflict with her dad.
Hands in the air!
Peter being a father changes the character.
You have a baby!
I have a baby!
This is crazy!
When's the last time you saw a pregnant Spider-Woman kicking butt and taking names?
I'm excited to revisit Miles and his family.
I love you, Miles, and I will always, always be here for you.
That theme of family is something that carries through all the characters that we're presenting in this film.
Family is always one of the things that most excited me.
I gotta go. All right, bye.
I swear, what are we gonna do with him?
In every dimension, every spider person is dealing with the problem of how do I keep my family safe and save the world?
Miles wants to break free from being a kid, and yet he wants to stay close to his family. Peter's got a brand new kid. Jessica has a kid on the way. Rio and Jeff are learning how to grow up as parents.
Parent-child relationships are a theme that runs through the entire movie and every single character.
I'm sorry for doing this. This is bad parenting.
Peter B, he's finally gotten to marry his college sweetheart, and they're finally having children.
I think we've all experienced a friend or a family member who has a kid and they're a little bit more excited than the rest of the world is about that baby.
Hey, you want to see pictures? This is her funny face. Oh, that's her mad face.
He thinks she's just fantastic, and, we'll see if everybody else agrees. He's definitely still pushing to do everything he can as a Spider-Man, but once you have a kid, things get divided and priorities change, and I think that happened for Peter.
It's a new experience. I think it's beyond him being a superhero. It's a bigger responsibility. He's looking at his daughter and going, holy crap, what am I doing?
A lot of people in this world experience having children, and it's that daunting question, can I actually do this? So it's really nice to see Peter in a really human moment where he's not sure.
There's no playbook for raising someone like her or being someone like you. You just gotta make the right adjustments at halftime. That's a sports metaphor, by the way.
I understand.
No, sorry.
Sometimes being a hero involves making sacrifices for the greater good, and despite Jessica being pregnant, despite her starting a family of her own, she wants to make sure that the world that she brings her child into is a safe one.
She's the ultimate multitasking mom who hasn't had to make a choice between a career or raising children. She can do it all, and she does it in a way that is so confident and casual, but with real strength.
Will you adopt me?
What?
What?
Not only is she sacrificial in terms of putting her own familial aspirations aside to save the world, she's also being an excellent mentor to Gwen. Just breathe.
We got you.
I don't know how to fix this.
Gwen, who doesn't have the most ideal situation, and you're watching a family struggle through these bumps in the road.
She feels alone and isolated because the police officer who's hunting Spider-Woman is her father.
I always taught you to do it by the book.
Then arrest me, Dad.
I can't.
It's as complex and conflicting as it is because there is an obvious love there. It's very relatable in the sense that even with that closeness, at a certain point in life, you become your own person. And that might not always be in alignment with what other people have in mind for you. She so desperately tries to get him to understand that as a cop, he is there and in place to help people. And that's ultimately all she wants to do herself, just in a little bit of a different way.
This relationship is very reflective of the complexity of growing up, both for the parents and for the children.
This mask is my badge, and I'm trying to be good too.
The reality is, this all happens through the growth of the parent. He makes the turn, which is very surprising for George to go, you know what, I choose you.
It was a good speech, huh?
Miles's family is really a large part of his life. That's everything to him.
I know how strong I am now. And I'm strong because of you and Dad and us.
What you find is that Miles comes from a really great union of a family. The love between Rio and Jefferson is so tangible and palpable, and you can see it. I think that is what's really great about watching what Miles does in the world as a hero, because he knows that there's a home for him. He knows that there's support. He knows that there's love.
Miles' superpower is that he has a family, and it becomes an area of strategic weakness. Spider-Man has big eyes, and those big eyes convey vulnerability and openness. In Miles' case, that vulnerability is in the form of his two parents.
Miles has to actively lie to his parents.
It's an emergency.
What? A graffiti emergency? A party with some friends I've never met emergency?
Explain yourself.
His parents are his closest friends. He doesn't just respect them and love them, he shares with them. So it really tears him up.
It's the hurdle of being a good son and also being Spider-Man. I think when we find our purpose and we're really working on it, we could get really caught up in it. For me, it's art, but for Miles, it's saving lives and the world.
You thought I could do something special. And the special thing I want to do is this.
As you grow up and you start to become who you are, you don't always want your parents to know that because you're afraid that they're not going to love you the same way.
We have an identity that is really personal to us, and maybe it won't be accepted. Maybe it will change the dynamic of your house, this secret identity, and not speaking to his parents about it. That's the stuff that ends up the most relatable.
I'm sorry I was late.
I think the movie respects how hard it is to be a parent.
You get to delve really deeply into the Morales family.
It's not just a coming of age for Miles, it's also a coming of age for the parents.
This movie, it's so complex and the solutions are so tough, like real life.
It's just hard to see my little man not being my little boy all the time.
As a mother, you want to keep your child close to you as long as you can. She's really struggling as a mom to let him go. She knows it's time, but she's not ready.
That's the intricate balance of raising a kid. You have to allow them to let go of the edge of the pool and try to tread water on their own and not jump in and help them. But that's not always comfortable.
I think you're getting pretty good at being a parent. You think you got it licked. And then they go and grow up.
The bond between Jefferson and Miles is something incredibly nuanced and beautiful. That was just something that I know that I wanted to see about the representation of Black fathers.
My son is 18 now, so a lot of the things that Rio and Jeff struggled through, I was struggling through with my son at that time. And you hopefully come out the other side stronger, as we have, and closer. But those are rough waters to traverse.
Rio knows that Miles is hiding something from her, which all parents face at some point, especially when your child's in those teenage years.
There's the obliviousness of parents who don't even see what's right in front of them, but also just always holding on to the potential of their child and dreaming for their child bigger than the child can dream for themselves.
Rio wants to know, but does she really want to know? It could be just your average teenage thing, or it could be more. And I think she knows it's more.
Wherever you go from here, you have to promise to take care of that little boy for me. You gotta promise, Miles.
I promise.
Just don't get lost.
With the first Spider-Verse movie, everyone pushed it so far. And coming to the sequel, there's an expectation we've got to push it again.
The music and the score, it is in the DNA of this project, of this world.
We really dove deep into the sonic soundscape for Miles.
When do I know I'm Spider-Man? You won't. That's all it is, Miles. A leap of faith.
I remember seeing Into the Spider-Verse, and I was so moved by the music and the score. It just caught my attention. It broke through every element in the film in a way that just felt so right.
Such a big part of the soundscape of the first movie is the contemporary music, popular music, and that was driven from what we imagine Miles would be listening to.
I've leveled up my whole thing.
Oh yeah? Let's see it then.
The composer for the score is Daniel Pemberton, who did the score for the first movie. Really innovative composer, uses all sorts of weird non-instruments along with an orchestra, and it has an energetic feel.
We spend a couple years building this movie. We use scores from other movies and try to represent a version of the movie just to make sense out of it all. And then thankfully someone like Daniel comes along and gives it the actual score that it needs and unifies the music as a whole.
What he did for the first movie was find a new sonic language for a superhero movie, which had to feel like it sprang from the mind of a 13-year-old Afro-Latino kid from Brooklyn.
He is just an outside-the-box thinker when it comes to music, and the instruments and his contribution to the film can't be overstated.
Stand back. I've been working on something new.
I try and create a new kind of orchestra for each world and each character. It's a very bespoke, created from the ground up collection of sounds.
You get to expand beyond just the familiar of Miles's world. We get to experience some other cultures and bring those into the music as well.
One of the first things was doing a lot of research and development, banking ideas, sounds. This has got so many different noises, from cutting-edge electronics, really old knackered electronics. There's some whistles I recorded in a cemetery, and it's going through a process of trying to find the sound palettes.
Each sound is different and distinct and matches the world that you're in.
His music taste is playful. He's making things that are not just dramatic and emotional, but then he has this really great wink, which always helps support our comedy.
Oh!
It's really interesting to be able to go on a Hollywood blockbuster movie, but approach it with the experimentation and freedom of how crazy can we get.
He brings in a DJ with turntables to perform alongside of a full orchestra. It's really very cool.
I love that everyone on this team, rather than just give us more of what you already did, it's like, let's do something different. And Daniel Pemberton took on that challenge.
There's nowhere to run. My bad, everybody. There was somewhere to run.
This time we've had
special guest producer,
the legendary Metro Boomin, who produced a bunch of tracks for the movie that really feel like it's part of Miles' playlist.
Having Metro Boomin come in is a really neat twist because Metro works with so many different amazing artists.
He's so collaborative. We'll show him the scene where we think that the track might fit and what we're trying to accomplish out of it emotionally, and then he goes back and reworks it.
It's cool to try to bridge the new with the old school and have music that's an homage to some of the stuff that came before. And I hear a lot of that in the stuff that Metro does.
Benny Man, come on, drop the beat.
We're also more global in this movie and its musical influences.
There's Afrobeat, there's Latin crossover, there's a little bit of everything.
We explore a little bit more of Miles's Puerto Rican side in this film.
You guys make a heck of a team.
Cinema is about giving you new experiences. There's a lot of movies that reheat emotions and experiences and ideas you've seen before in new ways, but with Spider-Verse, we make everything new. Everything's got to be like nothing you've heard or seen before.
A lot of us on the crew grew up with comics. It's part of our DNA.
The people working on these movies love comics, and so you're seeing a lot of pent-up dreams spill out onto the screen.
What's better than watching these comic books come to life?
And I think the reason that comics are so compelling is because through these characters that are fantastical, that are larger than life, we're always able to address real world things that we struggle with.
We managed to chase a very distinct idea for each character across the Spider-Verse.
We try any chance we get to involve the original creators and people that are working in comics right now and have them be part of the movie in ways big and small. We have comic covers that are chapter headings in our movie, and we like to go to comics artists to draw those for us. Chris Anka, who's just an amazing comics artist who does a lot of costume design in comics, and we're like, why don't we just have that guy design all of our costumes? So he wound up being like a major character designer on the movie.
From working at Marvel Comics for 10 years, I had all this innate knowledge. Every design in this movie and every character in this movie not only is there to respect the source material, but also respect the ideology of the character.
Rick Leonardi was somebody that we reached out to also for this type of stuff. It's fun to use the real deal.
I came upon Rick's work he did at Marvel Comics. It felt like his brush just flowed. Sometimes you can feel the artist laboring on the page, and nothing about Rick's work ever felt labored.
In the comic books of 2099, Rick Leonardi created this really dark world, and it's something we wanted to preserve.
We had to design worlds that took into account the spider person that exists in it and how it all gets represented as a cohesive visual.
And we reach out to Rick Leonardi and see if he wants to actually help us develop the look of 2099, explain his technique and do tutorials and drawovers for us.
Sony's invitation to meet was just so welcome and so thrilling. The idea of different dimensions, and each dimension is keyed visually to the original comic book style. Let's do it. If they really want to bring a comic book look into an animated setting, it's no small task. They're fortunate in some respects that I'm not a big crosshatcher. In an inked figure, deciding what feathering technique you're going to use is a crucial choice. My inking feathering technique has gotten very short, very tiny tooth stuff for the animators to translate. Shorter tooth, easy or easier. The things that are second nature to me in terms of making marks on a flat piece of paper, those things, when you start to rotate them in space, get really, really technically very difficult to achieve. I sent them a model sheet. This is how we do muscles. This is how we do black-white highlights and a largely black costume. This is how we do the muscles of the thigh. I wound up doing a keyframe in an animated sequence of Spider-Man jumping and landing just to demonstrate, if it were me, this is how I would do it. I enjoyed the process immensely.
Dan Slott, should we call him the godfather of the verse? He's the guy that put a lot of this stuff into motion.
One big contributor is Dan Slott, who had a great Spider-Man run and wrote the 3 Spider-Verse crossover events in the comics. He's just a guy we text. Can you think of a universe where it would kind of look like this? And he's like, yes, I'll be right back. And he'll give you like 3 options. He came on early in the story process just to knock ideas around. The idea that Miles went to Dimension 42 was his idea.
I have written Spider-Man a really long time. I wrote an arc of Amazing Spider-Man called Spider-Verse. Lord and Miller, they wanted to have a confab, have like a meeting, bring out the whiteboard and break things down. We're just talking about stuff. We're looking at big beats and things. If you were doing a sequel to Into the Spider-Verse, what kind of things would you want to see? One of the ideas I pitched in my Blue Sky document to them was that in the first movie, when we saw the spider that bit Miles Morales, the spider glitched. Now, by the rules of the first movie, that meant the spider wasn't native to their dimension. The spider had to be pulled from another dimension. And since it had 42 on it, that spider obviously came from Earth 42. Did Miles ruin everything? Is Miles to blame for everything? And it was really cool for me to see the speech that Spider-Man 2099 gives to Miles near the end of the movie. People ask me what my job is sometimes, and I tell them my job is to torture Spider-Man. That's my professional job. It's to take Spider-Man and every month find a different way to put Spider-Man on his back heels and make him feel tons of guilt. He's gonna laugh his way out of it, he's gonna have adventures, but that's the core of it. And I like the idea of putting all that emotional weight on Miles's back.
We kind of banged our heads against the wall trying to figure out who could bring that sort of luxe style to the film.
Brian Stelfreeze, he has such a unique quality to his work that feels graphic, but he captures so much humanity.
He just allows us to really make it a human story, first and foremost.
We wanted to have him help us develop the look of Jessica Drew.
It's great to see Brian Stelfreeze get acknowledged.
No matter how many comics I do, I can never get jaded by it. I'm still a giant fan of the medium. And you can really see that in the film, and you can see that in the creators themselves. They wanted not only how I draw, but why I draw. Normally, when I get a job like this, it's like, let me digitally draw things. But for this job, I was just like, oh, no, they're asking for something else. I made the decision early on, this is going to be paint on paper, and they wanted to know how to reproduce that style. And that style isn't a digital style. That style comes from capillary action and gravity. So it was really cool to paint on paper and just turn it in and say, you figure it out. That was very different. When I got brought into the project, Issa Rae was already a voice actress. That made things real easy for me because I'm totally familiar with her work and completely familiar with her face.
There was an artist named Brian Stelfreeze that was super influential in the look of Jessica Drew. When they broke down why that particular costume was important for her, I just was immediately on board. High fashion Jessica Drew across the board.
I spent a few years doing fashion illustration. I think that fashion illustration side of me sneaks into everything that I do. It was really cool to bring out that runway good looks. But then the twist was, and she's pregnant. It's really about the pose. It's about not hiding it, but just really putting it out there. It's pushing that silhouette as far as it can go.
You see the value of the legacy. People all over the world take these characters to heart. They mean something emotionally to people. It's a pretty amazing thing to see comic artists have a real day in the sun through Spider-Verse. I just love it as a comic nerd from way back. It's kind of a dream come true.
All stations, drop what you're doing and stop Spider-Man.
We asked ourselves, what's the most expensive thing we could possibly write? If he was just being chased by a reasonable number of people, I don't know if it would be any fun.
Miles versus 5 spider people.
It's not that fun. We wanted it to feel super excessive.
Can this day get any damn weirder? Whoa, I guess it can.
The idea of Miles fighting off all these other spider people who are bigger or stronger or better than him, that's exciting.
Your brain instantly goes, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a lot of work.
That was total insanity.
Stop running! Then stop chasing me!
Miles versus hundreds of spider people. It was a really fun idea, really hard to execute.
Yeah. There's lots of opportunities in there too. When you watch the movie, you go, oh, it feels like they had a lot of fun.
And we did. It was a lot of work, I'll say.
It was a lot of work.
I started to realize just how many characters needed to be animated in every shot.
Oh, well, I mean, I was one of the people who wanted 300 spiders.
It took about 2 years to get this sequence together.
Phil wanted to make sure that there was something for every fan.
Hello, Peter. It's sort of the dream. We were going all to these crazy sources where Spider-Man like once existed.
We started going through all the artists who made all the Spider-Verses so we could have this celebration of different Spider-Verse styles.
The key to do a movie at this scope and have something for everybody, for all ages.
All of that stuff is what really drives the bigger movie and the crazier movie and the much more visually diverse movie. It's incredibly daunting to attempt to know the histories and depth of all of the different spider person variations. Luckily, I have a lot of support of my team.
Lila, can you please,
Nah, you gotta say it first.
Call for backup.
What?
Please just call for...
Yeah, I already called her.
We ended up with about 50 characters from the comics that are other spider characters. We did our own riffs, add more spider women to it, add more body diversity to it, and have that fun and that freedom. The surprise was we needed more. I then had to design an additional 100 original spider characters for the movie.
Hell yeah! Even the horse can be a Spider-Man, right? And that's the charm of it.
Miles is being chased by 200 to 300 spider people, all of them with individual render styles and looks.
When you have these characters, how do you balance the color palette, the lighting, and not draw too much attention from what's happening?
We created a world that's a little bit more of a neutral palette, but most of the colors in the spiders to make them stand out from the environment. There's a lot of the traditional red and blue, every shade of red, every shade of blue, light and dark, as well as white and black, and other colors to fill out the palette.
We've done things in effects with speed lines and thrusters and racing cars with headlights. We have tons of detail moving every which way, and we've got to layer it in a way where you can still tell these spider people are chasing after Miles.
You can actually follow Miles through all of it. It's a challenge, obviously, to have 200 characters on screen simultaneously and to follow one guy.
The chase within the Spider's headquarters was always meant to be pure fun.
On the count of 3, draw. 1. You didn't wait for 3!
The idea for the set design was to create sort of the ultimate spider's lair. It is a ginormous, brutalist concrete spider web.
It's just an obstacle course of spider people.
We wanted to create the ultimate jungle gym for his escape. We're also using the light in that environment to create secondary spider webs.
There's no up or down within the spider headquarters. That makes it a lot of fun and gives us a lot of leeway in terms of continuity.
You can't run forever, kid!
Miles lives in a Spider-Man world where there's lots of other Spider-Men. It's sort of like you're competing with all the versions of yourself, which we all always are.
Spectacle without emotion just gets boring. It's imperative to anchor it in emotion.
I know he's your friend, but it's the only way.
Comedy and the action and the emotion. It takes us a long time to find the balance.
I didn't want it to just be a bunch of noise and a bunch of people running around chasing each other and shouting at each other.
Hey, Miguel!
Can you take a photo of this? It's our first chase.
I'm imagining what Miles is saying to himself, and that's, I gotta get home, I gotta get home, I gotta get home.
I think with that foundation is why it works so well. It's always about finding that one core thing that brings us together. And for us, it's family.
Come on, go easy on the kid. He had a terrible teacher.
We did an early version of that chase that didn't have the pause with Peter be in it, and it just wasn't working. We need this chase. We need these beats. We were like, you know what? Peter and Miles haven't had a chance to have a conversation since they've reconnected.
Miles!
It's a really nice emotional scene between the two of them.
No, let me go.
It's crazy to run.
The movie has a huge, expansive story, and so we have made a movie that is hopefully as deep as big.
Bad things are gonna happen. It makes us who we are. But good things happen too, you know? Like you happened. And she happened.
I think that's really what made the whole thing click.
And you are so bad at holding a baby.
We got your location, Peter.
Wait, no. You do not have my location. Over.
Send everyone.
Hopefully you get that chill when Miles realizes his friends have been lying to him.
To realize that he's really alone and that it's up to him to change his fate is a really emotionally raw moment for him.
It's all choreographed to make you feel those things that were on the page that we wanted the audience to feel.
We're looking down on Miles for the majority of the fight. We're shooting him as the small man. His eye line is maybe just off center, so he appears a bit more timid throughout the piece. And as he gets imbued with more and more confidence, his eye line looks more directly at the camera.
It's a very nice transition of the emotion that they were trying to convey with what Miles is going through and what Miguel is going through.
Who has no idea what you're doing!
At the core of it, it is all emotion. Miguel's rage and Miles's fear. It's all these different things coming together, and that's what makes it powerful, is the emotion behind the action that's happening.
Who do you think you are? Really?
When it was boarded by Joaquim, it was beautifully done. And instead of cutting to Miles like we had done in the boards, it's even more impactful because we cut to almost an empty frame and Miles rises into the frame, and it's this perfect little moment of a hero rising.
If it was just silliness for 5 minutes, you would get tired.
This is called a sleeper hold. I'm using my bicep to constrict your...
And if it was just people being like really serious, eventually it weighs on the audience.
You want to be able to laugh, you want to be able to cry, you want to be afraid, and the closer those things can bash up against each other, the more you feel like you've had a real experience.
All right, gang, we got a bogey on the move, location TBD. Who's thirsty?
Oh, you're being so dramatic. I'm tracking him now.
All right, you know the drill.
I mean, I can go once I take care of this literal Dr. Octopus.
It's okay, I got it.
Is Ben available, or is he just looking at himself in the mirror being deep?
I'm busy chasing shadows on the wall. Shadows of myself.
Well, I'm growing a human inside of me. Guess which one of us is busy?
You always throw in my face that you're pregnant and I'm not.
Come on, guys. Who's gonna do this? Who's gonna be a friend?
I remember, friends. Before the Spider War.
Oh, no. Petra, please.
The year was 2087.
Petra, I love
this
this
story. Don't spare any details.
Daughter against daughter. Older operating system against newer operating
Hay de todo en la viña del señor.
Hey, look, I got him. Earth 3902.
Web him up, send him back where he came from, and cauterize whatever hole he slipped through in the first place.
Well, it's not exactly clean. Wait a second. He's on the move again.
What do you mean it's not clean?
He made his own portal. You bring him back, he'll make another one. Hey, look, I got him. Earth 3902. Nope, scratch that. Earth 50101. Whoa! He's really cooking. This guy is a walking, talking butterfly effect. Look, if everyone's busy, I know someone who can help.
Oh, great.
Someone newer.
Oh!
Smarter.
Yes!
Thinks different.
Oh yeah, that's me right there.
Has his own style.
Definitely.
Yep. Hobie it is.
Hobie? No!
He quit.
He took time off.
Yeah, because he doesn't believe in institutions or teams. Lila can't even find
He
him.
gave me a way to contact him.
Yeah, he did.
No, he did not.
He's totally unreliable. And erratic.
I'm reliable. And very erratic.
Miles?
Gwen.
And I love institutions, might I add.
Santa Marta. So is this the nothing that slowed you down?
I'd say I'm the something that slowed it down. Not slowed, you know, but Miles Morales, Spider-Man of Earth
1610.
1610, volunteering for duty.
Is that a new suit?
Designed it myself.
I liked the old one.
This one looks like you're bleeding from the armpits.
Well, it looks better when it lights up. See?
Now it looks infected.
Okay, look, the target's name is the Spot. I know how he works. I know what makes him tick.
What makes him tick?
No one takes him seriously. Luckily, I faced him and won.
Then why is he still at large?
Well, you see, my parents, I had to go to this meeting with a college counselor, but not. Look, I'm ready to give him my full attention. Okay?
Oh, wow. Okay, thank you. We're all full up.
Gwen, can you help?
I mean, he's a good kid. A great man.
Kid, this whole situation's already too complicated.
'Cause what? Let me guess, huh? There's a multiverse and a bunch of timelines, and if something different happens, it messes everything up, right? I'm not an idiot. I read comics and watch TV and see movies.
Why do you want to be a part of this so badly?
Justice.
Wrong answer.
Then what's the right answer? Tell me, and I'll want that.
You don't belong out there, kid.
But I could if you taught me to. I'm just as much a Spider-Man as you are.
You couldn't.
Then show me. I used to have someone to show me the ropes. But now I don't have anyone. Come on, man, please.
We know where to find you.
Miguel.
Okay, Gwen, do your job or go home.
Look,
Yeah, okay. I get it.
I don't have a choice.
Me either.
It was great meeting your parents. What you guys have is better than all this anyway.
Yeah, that's what people say when they don't get to do all that.
Please. Let it go. See you soon.
You bet.